I think what really comes across more, and I've recorded several webinars with you over the years, but every year you are more passionate about your primary mission.
Yes.
You care about building these communities. Nobody, gets up to raise money for a real estate fund, et cetera, and spends as much time as you do talking about what you're building. The communities that you're building and what you're hoping for the residents of those communities and how you're trying to improve their lives. I can tell this is what gets you up in the morning.
Yes.
Is that mission? Do you see any downsides to being so mission focused on that, or do you think that's all extra icing on the cake for the investors? You mentioned that treating the residents well is good for business. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's funny, Jim, and you've been with me at the White Coat event, we were just doing this, kind of a live presentation, a little bit sort of deeper dive than we just did right now. And you might remember I asked the question, who wants to be a part of investing in housing that's affordable for working families, right? And I got maybe a third of the hands went up or half the hands went up, and that's about normal, right? And I asked another, who wants to build an extraordinary family and leave a legacy, and I got maybe a third to half of hands that went up, and this is a room of all physicians. I said, who wants double digit returns on your investments with liquidity? And every hand went up, right? And so I fully recognize that when people come and they hear about us, that what they care most about is what's in it for me, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, right? To do the hard work of creating wealth and wanting to be great stewards of those resources, that's what we have to do, and that's what we're responsible to do is to make sure you're making sound investments, protecting your resources, generating the kind of returns that the risk adjusted returns you're looking for, so that you can support your own family and people you care about, but also maybe the ministries and organization churches that call on your heart. And so we fully respect that and appreciate that, and that's why we have to be great at what we do. We generating double digit returns in all market environments, and in this high interest rate environment we just went through, and markets environments like COVID, et cetera. Doing it month in and month out, year in and year out is not easy. You have to be excellent to generate the kind of consistency we do at the business you do, and we take that very, very serious. But the great news is that focusing on caring for our residents, simply put, loving our residents, building deep relationships within our communities is good for business. I do a talk on the power of and having an approach of generating great returns and excellent performance and making an impact. It's harder to do both. Don't get me wrong. It's harder to do both. But when done well, they're very, very complementary. And the very simple note is the things that matter in housing are: do you have people living there? Do you have occupancy? Do people want to live in your community? And can they afford to pay their rent? Or do they want to stay in the community? These are the big questions and factors that generate revenue and then generate profits. And by having a community where people can afford the rent, you're going to have great demand. By people being able to afford the rent, they can pay the rent. By people being able to afford the rent, they want to stay. When people have relationships and are being served well, they want to stay. When people aren't moving out, when they're because they live there long term and they love where they live and they feel well taken care of, they take better care of their apartment. They treat it more like their own, which means you have less maintenance issues, less wear and tear. All of these things are good for business, but it's a harder approach, you could say, than just simply focused on getting the highest rent you can at all time and turning over the unit constantly. You could argue that that's an easier way to do it. That's sort of the industry norm way to do it. But we believe it generates lower returns in that approach, and certainly doesn't serve the local community and the residents the same way this approach does.
The hosts of The White Coat Investor are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is for your entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.